Hello everybody, my name is Bricky, and this is going to be a no gameplay video, so it's just a lot of talking, and basically there will be nothing on the screen besides this cool little wallpaper of Monokuma. So with that, just go ahead and throw this on somewhere on the side, put this in the background if you were doing some work or something, driving in the car or whatever you might be doing, and just give it a listen. So as a lot of you may know, I decided to, well, not necessarily decided, I was bought out to play the first Danganronpa Dingus Donka game on stream and ended up enjoying it actually a decent amount. And so I decided to play the other two games on stream as well. And a lot of people, since all those games kind of have been lost in the VODs as they weren't uploaded anywhere, have been asking for my opinions on the game. And so I thought I would go ahead and give you my opinion as somebody who doesn't very much enjoy anime at all. It's definitely a different thing for me to be playing a game like this, but I thought it might be kind of fun to give you a kind of a quasi review slash discussion and go from there. This will contain spoilers, absolutely, from all three games. If you have not played them, then I mean they are pretty great stories and have some really good characters, but I'm assuming that most people have played the games by now if you're watching this video, because this is probably more catered to those people who have already played the titles. So let us go ahead and get started with basically just my thoughts on the game in an overall scenario. I like the game a pretty decent amount in terms of story and characters. The gameplay is very much not for me. I do not like text-based adventures, and I knew this going in, and I knew that I was going to have it kind of grating on me the entire time as I keep on click, 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 read. And some of the gameplay, most specifically with the investigations, can drag a bit. I'll get more into that later, but mainly the gameplay is definitely a not for me thing. Text-based is not my thing. I don't like text-based adventure games. I never have, and it's just not my thing. But like a game like StarCraft, like say I enjoy RTS games, but let's say I didn't enjoy RTS games, I could still appreciate StarCraft for the lore. I could still appreciate it for the story. And that is the case with the DR games. In fact, the story and characters are so well done that, I mean, and including the dialogue, I suppose, as well, are so well done that it got me to play two more games of gameplay I don't like, which is a pretty solid feat in its own right. Now, mainly when it comes down to the story of the game is that it's just very intense and well done. And originally when I started playing it and I jumped into the first ever DR game and I was hopping in and I was feeling all this crazy vibes of, oh God, we're trapped in a high school. We all got to murder each other. It was definitely quite frightening, but I was lamenting the fact that they didn't have an option to allow you to choose who lives or dies. You can make the choice to kill somebody or not. And I realized why they didn't do that, and I realized that I was wrong. And it was definitely a good call to make it a linear game because it allows all the characters to be fleshed out in their own way, regardless of if they die or live for the entire time. So it made things a lot more interesting. And overall, the story is incredible. The idea of it is very unique and interesting. I love the investigative style of it. I think it's a very cool idea to not only have this type of thing where if somebody gets murdered, you have to find out who it is, but if you don't find out who it is, you all die. Monokuma is easily one of the best characters and antagonists in a very long time that I have seen, even though I know he's not like a new thing or anything. But Monokuma is a fantastically voice acted, just fleshed out, incredibly funny mascot that in reality you really should hate a lot more than you do, but you don't. And he's just an incredible part of the game. He really holds it all together. He's like the glue that contains everything going on. Past that, the main thing I enjoyed the most about the DR games was actually the characters and their characters' backstories. Now, this should come as no surprise. Anyone who has played a DR game knows that the characters are basically the entire crutch of the game. The thing that Monokuma does is glue it all together, but you need the parts to glue anything back. And so all the characters and their storylines are insanely well done and well voice acted as well, but well written. And a lot of the characters are just so memorable and so appreciated, and either extremely sad or extremely funny. They all have a place to play. Now, there are some, and this is mainly true of the first game, that have a lot of rather dull characters, a lot of just kind of, hi, I'm here, and then I immediately died, or I just wasn't important for the entire game. There's a little bit too many just useless characters in some of the games, in the first game at least. Now, this is significantly less of a problem in the second game, and a little bit of the same issue in the third game, but not to the same extent, in my opinion. But it is overall, every character is at least like a solid, C plus to a B. You don't really have that many F tier characters in any of the games, minus maybe a couple, in the grand scope of things. It's kind of like if you watch a really bad movie, you have to figure out, is it a mediocre movie or a bad movie? It depends. Like for instance, a great example for me would be Halo. Halo 4 and 5, a lot of people call very bad. I don't consider them bad games. I consider them mediocre games because at the end of the day, gameplay is still solid. It runs well. It looks decent. It's generally a well-made games. They have their problems, but they're well-made and they have good parts about them. So I consider them sort of mediocre games rather than like a legitimately bad game. Some of you might disagree with me, and that's fine, whatever. But not really the point. The point is that there was no real bad characters, save for a couple. Maybe I can count them on one hand, the amount of characters I actually despise having to deal with. And even then, some of them got a little bit more impressive later on. But let me go through each game one by one and tell you my more personal thoughts on each game individually. Let's start off with DR1, obviously. DR1 is, in my opinion, the weakest of the three, but that's like saying Metroid Prime 2 is the weakest of the Prime series. All three games are like 9.5, 9.3, 9.0 games, basically. DR1 is the 9.0 game. They're all very solid games. Even though the gameplay is not for me, I assume somebody who does like text-based games would enjoy it significantly more than I do. But in DR1, it's a very, very solid experience as an intro game. And it serves as a very good intro game. Your main character, Makoto, he's so beta. Oh my God, he's the most insolent ass person ever. But I can appreciate him for the sake of having the main character role, even though he's about as smart as a pile of bricks and can't take any kind of hint ever. But besides that, a lot of the characters are very good in the first game, and the setup is very solid as well. It's very claustrophobic. It's very kind of a dark and damp area in this whole school, and the idea that you can't just roam around everywhere is definitely detrimental and quite frightening. And Makoto's interaction with a lot of their characters is very solid. There are a lot of characters in the first one that I mentioned just are boring and don't do much at all. For instance, I think it's Sayaka, I forget how I say her name, the pop star. Boring, dies immediately. Leon, extremely boring, dies immediately. Yasuhiro, I think that's how I say his name, is just a complete waste of space the entire game. The stupid Hifumi guy with the 2D anime girl fanfic writer, just not interesting in my opinion. A lot of boring characters, and even the characters that are really good are like sometimes still useless. Like I really like the character of Aoi, or how you say, the swimmer girl. I thoroughly enjoy the character of her because I liked the mentality, like the positive attitude, keep going mentality. But saying she brought a lot to the investigation would be me lying out of my ass because she really didn't do anything like that. I appreciate the character and the personality, but she really didn't bring anything to the table. Whereas somebody like Chihiro, for instance, got kicked out pretty damn fast, but was still a prominent figure throughout the rest of the game for his own reasons. The best characters, without a doubt, of the first game in my opinion, are Taka, as well as Sakura, Byakuya, and what was the other one I was thinking of? I think it was well, and Chihiro actually. That was the last one I was thinking of. Now there are a couple other good ones, like Kyoko is pretty interesting, and Genocide Jill is very interesting as well. But Byakuya is that's how you say his name. I called him Bakugan the entire playthrough. Is definitely a very enjoyable character, even though I get really sick of him consistently saying, "Why don't you answer this one, Makoto?" Like dickhead, just do it. I don't want to do another truth bullet segment. What do you? Come on, man, just say it. Kyoko is the kind of the same, but she plays off that little bit of that, oh, I'm secretive. I don't know what you're talking about kind of thing for quite some time. And she's a little bit bland. She has some development, but she's a bit bland for a little too long. And Taka is, I forget his first name, but he's the moral compass guy. Loved him. Thought he was hilarious. One of the favorite characters in that entire game. Absolutely awesome. And Sakura, in my opinion, is the best written character of the entire game. She's tragic. She's got an awesome backstory. Very strong, very intense. Lady took 2 bottles to the back of the head and still stood up and was just like, man, this sucks. And, ended herself. But Sakura is without a doubt the best written character in the entire game. It is very solid. The introduction to Monokuma was great. The humor is very, very solid too, and which is good because it's such an intense game. And if you strip away all the humor from the game, DR is very depressing. It is an incredibly depressing video game. Like, damn, is it sad. But with all the extra humor injected, mainly by Monokuma and occasional humorous characters as well, it definitely can be very enjoyable. I did like Toko for the Genocide Jill thing. Toko grained on me the entire time. I hated her, but the Genocide Jill thing was pretty hilarious for a decent period of time. But the main thing I wanted to mention was my gripes of the investigations that I mentioned earlier. I said I'd get back to. Investigations kind of have this weird difficulty tweak that bugs me a bit. So for a game, let's go back a little bit. Detective work in its own right is a subjective and opinionated process. A lot of times what goes with what and what fits with what is a very opinionated kind of discussion to have. So the fact that the game can pull off this kind of detective work so well is a testament to the game design. However, saying that it is flawless is a lie, and I have a lot of solid gripes with it. Now, most of it's okay. Hangman's Gambit is fine, little trial and error because there's a lot of words to describe situations that can just end up being kind of silly. There are a couple other game modes that we'll get into in the second game, like Logic Dive and stuff, that have their own thing. But the final DDR thing at the end is fine as well. No issues there. The Truth Bullets segment always gets me, though, because a lot of the Truth Bullets have that issue where they can either overlap or assume you know something that you might not in a way that wasn't clearly explained to you. And the main issue I have is the first one, because the higher you ramp up the difficulty of the game, it doesn't actually become more difficult from a mental standpoint, but rather more difficult from just a tedium standpoint. It adds more white noise, just if you gotta shoot away, lowers your time, I think it makes it take more damage. I could be wrong on that one though. And it adds more truth bullets. And the more truth bullets you add, the higher chance you have of truth bullets having very similar answers. So let's say I have one truth bullet that refers, actually, this is a great example of the third game, where there's 2 truth bullets. It's the alibis for a certain night, as well as Gonta's insect meet and greet. Now, both of these things completely overlap each other. Now, the alibis do move a little bit farther in with other people's alibis, but the alibi we're referring to is one that they both overlap in. So at that point, it just depends on the game's opinion, what it considers a better bullet. And the higher your difficulty is, the more bullets you have, and the larger opportunity for that possible issue is to happen. At the end of the day, solving a case like this is a generally opinionated thing because what goes with which and what means what is very much in the mind of the player. The game does a great job at circumventing this problem for the most part, but I found myself, especially in the second game, more than often having a very difficult time figuring out how to work with all that kind of stuff. And also, green bullets are horrible, and I hate them so much, and I'm so glad they were removed in the third game. So that's my gripes with the investigative gameplay. In terms of what they tried to do, it's pretty damn great, but it still has a lot of problems that end up grating on me regardless. So I wanted to get that out of there really fast. The first game isn't too bad. The second game is, in my opinion, the worst offender. And the third game is actually probably the best. I think it handles it the best by far, especially with the line mechanic. But anyway, first game was very enjoyable. The twist at the end was extremely exciting, great. The whole Junko thing was very interesting as well. Very well voice acted character. That also something I wanted to say. The voice acting. I played all 3 games in English, and I know that's heresy for some people, but I speak English, so I'm gonna play an English game and listen to it in English. Sue me. But a lot of the English voice acting is pretty damn good. I can only name a couple characters that didn't have a solid voice actor or actress. It was very well done. I was quite pleased because compared to some anime is not doing it very well, at least in my experience, which is very limited. But the second game is my personal favorite of the 3. I think the second game is the best because of the characters. The characters are insanely well fleshed out. Almost all of them are great. They're incredibly fun. And they all have a purpose to be there. Even the first people that die had a very interesting story. The only problem the second game generally has, in my opinion, is that it suffers from lost. What's the best word to describe this? It's not. I guess it's kind of more of it loses possibilities. It has had a lot of potential, lost potential. There we go. Where certain things for certain characters end up making the characters worse that really didn't need to be there. For instance, the chef in the beginning. The chef, for all intents and purposes, once you know all about him, is a really good character. But they made him a pervert, and it just completely ruins him. The mechanic is another great example. He was, in all intents and purposes, a cool guy. He was an interesting, cool guy. But then he becomes this massive white knight for Sonya, and he becomes insanely grating and tiring to listen to. Now, there were a lot of very good character arcs in the game. For instance, I cannot believe I ended up disliking the mechanic and loving the Yakuza member. Hiko turned a massive 180 around and became, without a doubt, one of the best characters in the game, and I was incredibly pleased with how he turned out. It was intense. In the beginning, when I first started playing the game, I was like, okay, this Gundam guy is really weird. I don't like him. And by the end of the game, Gundam was basically my favorite character in the entire game. I thought he was fantastic, and the voice actor is top tier. And pretty much everyone there, Peko is interesting, Mikon is interesting, Ibuki is hilarious. The only people that I legitimately despised was that damn dancer girl, but I think that was kind of the point. And the girl that looked like Wendy that got a baseball batted in the face. I forget her name. Mahiru? I think it was Mahiru. Yeah, I didn't like her that much, but she was a little bit annoying. But besides them, they were all very solid. Also, the main character of Hajime is significantly better than Makoto, and in my opinion, Shuichi in the third game as well. I think he's the best main character because he actually has some balls sometimes. He's still just kind of chilling there, but a lot of times when someone says something, someone like Makoto will be like, okay, moving on. Or Shuichi would just kind of give you a weird face. Hajime would just look at you and like, dude, shut up. It's nice to have some grit finally on somebody. And of course, the ending for that game I thought was also very, very interesting. A bit taken the oomph out of it thanks to the anime afterwards, but I didn't really care too much about the anime or anything like that. I just kind of let it be. But no, the punch of the second game was really hardcore, even though it was negated a bit by the anime after that. I did not mention as well the most important part of the second game. My homie, my bro, my dude friend, Nagito Kamikaze. Okay, so Nagito is without a doubt, I shouldn't say without a doubt, is the best character of all 3 games, of the entire series, of everything. He is the best not maybe the best voice actor, but he's extremely well voice acting. He's got a ton of layers to him. He is menacing. He's terrifying. He is everything that you would want a character to be. He is so insanely well written. It is incredible. The only person that might be a better character than him is in the third game, and we'll get to him in a second. Hint is Kokichi. Okay. But Nagito is a phenomenal character with a extremely good backstory, a very interesting whole ending to him. I thought his trial was awesome, was the best trial in the game, and I think it may have actually been the best trial of all the games. There was one part that really got me mad, but that involved a certain plushie. That one pissed me off pretty hard, but for my own reasons. But besides that, the whole trial, his character, the backstory, it's great to think of somebody who experiences such insanely bad luck and then such insanely good luck right afterwards. And it makes total sense that he would go insane. You know, his parents get killed right in front of his face, and he gets their inheritance, becomes a rich boy, gets kidnapped and held for ransom money, but nobody cares about him, so nobody would try to buy him. And he finds a lottery ticket in there and becomes rich or something as well. Is diagnosed with dementia in the frontal lobe or something, is going to die in a year. Literally will die in 1 year, gets accepted to Hope Peak Academy. He is the epitome. Or he may have gone Hope Peak. He may have been accepted before he learned about. I forget. He is the epitome of someone who just was driven crazy by this inability to accept this weird back and forth luck he has. The whole escape, I'm bad at escape rooms, so I kind of skipped the escape room part. But the whole room with the 5 bullets and the revolver thing, his entire trial, he's such a good character. He's an incredibly good character. And if games could write characters like him, no game would ever have a bad person or a badly written character ever again. He's incredible. Okay, enough gushing about Nagito. Finally, for the third game, not really much I have to say about the second game. I thought the Neo World program was fine. That was a cool idea. I thought it was very interesting. I love the ending. I love how the ending, besides the fact that it got kind of BS'd by the anime, I love the fact that the ending was really dark. It seemed very terrifying and kind of left you with a little bit of ambiguity. You had no idea what would happen when they would all wake up, and I thought it was rather interesting. For the third game, however, or V3, that is, I thought it was also very good. Not as good as the second one, and that was because of characters. However, the gameplay was significantly better than all the other two. I loved your character having their own sprites in the bottom right. I thought that the entirety of the investigation system with no green truth bullets was good. I thought the lying mechanic was very interesting. I enjoyed the Hangman's Gambit more than the other one. I also thought the Minesweeper one was perfectly fine. Psych Taxi is terrible. Logic Dive is significantly better. That is a fact. No one disputes that. That is the one caveat. However, Mass Panic debates are great. Scrum debates are the coolest thing ever. I love Scrum debates. And I also just liked how the game flowed. How dialogue options, how it all worked out. It was extremely well done. And Shuichi was a good character. He was not as good as Hajime, but better than Makoto. And a lot of I'm sorry if I'm saying a lot. This is literally all off the cuff. I have no script here, so I'm just winging it. But I thoroughly loved the idea of Kaede's start in the beginning. It was a very interesting and unique twist. I am a little bit upset. I would have liked to have played as a ultimate that wasn't a random ultimate. For instance, Hajime was a nobody, Makoto was lucky, and it would have been nice to play as somebody who actually embodied their character. I would have been fine playing as the pianist the entire game. I think it would have been enjoyable. I think it would have been a nice change of pace to have somebody who talks in piano talk all the time. Whereas we had the detective guy, which is really just some rookie detective and not as interesting. Also, he took off his hat, and that was sad. I like this hat. But my main gripes with 3 actually come down to characters. It's almost like 2 and 3 had a baby, or 2 and 1 had a baby, where it has a lot of useless characters, but also a lot of extremely good characters. For instance, on the more useless side, you had people like Kibo, who until the last second of the game was incredibly uninteresting, and I honestly couldn't care less about him. And then you had Samugi, which until the last bit of the game was incredibly uninteresting, and I couldn't care less about him. Then you also had a bunch of other characters, like you had what was her name? No, Ryoma, the tennis player. A bit interesting at times, but really didn't do much and was just kind of there for a lot of it. And then you had Himiko, which was boring as hell for me the entire game, and then renewed herself at the end. Tenko, I did not like. She was annoying, and I had no interest in ever talking to her. Angie, people really seemed to like. I did not like her that much. I thought she was whatever. I mean, she got pretty good around the Korekiyo trial, but before that, also rather uninteresting. Most of the characters were rather just, how do I say this? They were too boring, and they either died or immediately had a turnaround in character near the end that kind of made them more interesting, but that turnaround, that arc, doesn't invalidate a good 30 hours of boring, is the best way I can describe that. Kibo got interesting, but he was horrible the rest of it. Samugi got interesting, but she was boring the rest of it. Ryoma died. Kurumi was great. I thought she was really interesting, especially her twist, but she died too early for it to be too interesting. I will admit, Miu was pretty hilarious the entire time. I did like Miu. Maki was very boring in the beginning and then became interesting once again. Same with Kaito. Kaito was... I gotta admit, though, Kaito really started to grow on me after he punched me in the face. Once he punched me in the face, I started really liking him a lot more. But, he was kind of useless and even kind of stayed useless most of the game until the end. Gonta was really a good character, but didn't do much as well. There was a lot of those things. Like, a lot of these characters I like they got nice things. Like, Korekiyo became really interesting at the end. They became very cool, and they became great characters, but it either took them a while or it was during their trial, and then they died. That was kind of the issue. Now, there is one person I haven't mentioned, and that is Kokichi. And Kokichi definitely rivals Nagito for the best made character of them all. Not only that, but his English voice actor is incredible. His English voice actor is just... It's almost like he's got a little bit of flamboyant in him. He's a little bit like... He's a tad bit little kind of prancy almost, but not entirely. And just the constant lying jokes, the fact that you kind of hated him, but then appreciated him. But then you're just like, Kokichi, you little dick, but I love you, but you asshole, but I love you. It's one of those weird kind of things. And the ending for his character was also, I think, very interesting and well done. And I thought he was... I mean, I'm not saying as much about him as I'm saying about Nagito, but it's because a lot of his backstory is shrouded in mystery. I like Nagito because he went insane for a very good reason. Good old Kokichi was just kind of a little prick, but he had his reasons for it, and he was extremely well made. And I appreciated that a lot. They were good for their own reasons. I think I just appreciate Nagito more because it's more sympathetic, probably is the best way to describe that. It did make Gonta's trial a lot sadder, though, when you realize that Kokichi probably actually did care a lot about the guy and just kind of forced his hand because he didn't want to die. It was pretty sad. But then, of course, let's talk about the elephant in the room here, the third game's ending. The third game's ending is very polarizing, and for obvious reasons. But if I have to be honest, I find it undefensible. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I kind of like it, but not a full like. Give me like a 75% here on an appreciation scale, maybe. So, as somebody who makes content, there was a great part where Kibo is being yanked around, and the audience is telling him, "This isn't my Danganronpa. This isn't my show." And as somebody who has to deal with that kind of person day to day, "Oh, this isn't the game I wanted to watch. Oh, this isn't the stuff that I wanted." I can see exactly where the writer is coming from. And it seems very much like the director of this game was sick and tired of people telling him how to make his game. And so he said, screw you guys. And he made this crazy ending. And while I can understand that very, very much, I do appreciate the sort of obscurity to it. Because a lot of the things that Sumugi says at the end about it all being fiction directly contradict themselves. For instance, if this was something that everyone signed up to do for a game show like they say it is, then why would we need to be kidnapped in the beginning? Why would we arrive and see the Monocubs and not think to ourselves, wait, that's the mascot of the show I love? They only knew that it was the show they got picked for after they told them, which is a very strange thing. Then you have a lot of other weird things like the whole Kibo thing, and he's kind of an anomaly where he directly correlates the opposite of that. And there was a lot of crazy. And then there's one that always gets me is Mew. And Kibo too, because Kibo was, or I think he was human in the original photo. He seemed human. And then he was a robot? What happened there? And Mew is a big one. Like, if they're all just regular students, Mew cannot just placebo affect that kind of invention. She can't just placebo affect that much technology into her brain. You just can't. That's what Sumugi said was the reason. It was like, oh, placebo will make this all better. I'm sorry, dog, but you can't just do that. Unless you're transferring somebody else's memories or something into your brain. I don't know how the hell you would do that. So some of it directly contradicts each other in a very interesting way. But what I want to end the ending off of is on a specific note, where the whole point of the ending was Shuichi and the rest basically said, it doesn't matter that we're fictional characters or whatever. All of it was real to us. And that, I think, is kind of the saving grace of the game, is that at the end of it, it doesn't matter if the first 2 games and 3 games were negated because it matters to them. Or it matters to us. If the characters meant something to us, if the experiences of the game meant something to us, then it shouldn't matter that it means nothing, that it isn't true, because it mattered to us. You kind of understand that? I get the idea of it. I get what they're trying to get for. It might work for you. You might love the idea. You might hate the idea. Whichever the reason is, there's enough ambiguity for there to be discussion about it, and enough of it to where if they end the game and the director leaves, which he did, we're fine without any other games coming out, at least because of the story. Anyway, that's my opinions on the game. Overall, gameplay is not my thing at all. I'm pretty sure I would die if I tried to play Persona, but the story and characters are incredibly well done, and I enjoyed them quite a bit. If you want to know my favorite characters of all the games, that would be Sakura, Nagito, Kokichi. And if you're gonna ask me best girl, because I know you're gonna ask me best girl, it's the swimmer girl, Aoi, however you say her name in the first game. Sonya Nevermind in the second game. She was a little boring in the beginning, but then got really, really funny at the end. I know y'all want to do Chiaki and whatever, but she's complete bait. Don't get baited. And in the third game, definitely Kurumi the maid, without a doubt. I mean, I like Nier, come on. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. It was a pleasure having you here, and yeah, I don't really have anything else. That was the game. There's my thoughts on it, and I will see y'all later. Bye-bye.